Good morning and welcome back to the VIP seat. Today is June 17th. We've got your top business aviation news stories today. I'm your host, as usual, Jessie Naor, and Preston Holland is our co-host. Welcome back, Preston.
Jessie, here we go. It is an exciting week in business aviation. For the summer, it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on. So we've got some stuff to talk about, and I'm excited for that. Back from the beach, back in the seat, back in the VIP seat, and excited to get started.
Ready to roll. All right. Well, I think the thing that's really on a lot of people's minds these days is the conflict in Iran and Israel. And you and I were talking last week. We don't get political on this show. It's a business aviation show, but at the same time, we love airplanes. So we wanted to talk a little bit about, okay, what do these two air forces look like? The battle has begun, has long begun, but it's interesting to compare the two and say, okay, who has air superiority here? Obviously, Israel does. But it's kind of shocking to also know how old some of Iran's aircraft are. We're talking 35 years, some 60 years old in their fleet.
Yeah, I am not surprised, to be completely honest with you, but I will say that I didn't recognize how old the fleet really was. Like, we're talking, like, there's probably not much. Like, you think you got supply chain problems with the Hawker 400 windshields, like try flying a 1980s Russian fighter jet. Like, that sounds way worse.
Yeah. Actually, technically speaking, Iran's fleet is larger than Israel's. But when you're talking about aircraft that came before the revolution in the 70s, functional airplanes is an entirely different question. I mean, Israel has the F-35. Iran has no fifth generation fighters. Iran has some MiGs, some F-14s, but again, these things are very, very old, in 60s, 1980s. They had plans to actually buy some more Russian aircraft, but I don't think they've been delivered yet. And so far, I have not seen any evidence of these planes flying in the region against Israel.
Yeah,
at this
it's
point.
pretty crazy. Although I did see, I don't know if you've been following the air tanker situation. For those that don't know,
Yes.
It's Monday. So let's preface this with, if it's Tuesday morning and something crazy has happened, we record this on Monday afternoons at the end of the day. So something totally crazy could happen overnight. But as of yesterday, there was 30 something tankers moving to Europe for a planned activity in the region. And I'm like, that's convenient timing.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of airplanes in the sky. And people don't realize how far away Israel is from Iran. I mean, we're talking 2,300 kilometers on one of the missions they just completed, but that also ties into the F-35. And I didn't even realize this until I started digging deeper. But the F-35, Israel is allowed to make modifications to it, some pretty significant modifications compared to the version that we have in the US. There's been hearsay and conversations about them extending the range of the F-35. And after seeing all of the activities of the last few days, we're all pretty sure that Israel has added some additional fuel tank capacity and could have extended the range by like 200 to 500 nautical miles, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, that is, when you consider weight and balance and the amount of payload that those things are carrying, that is pretty significant. So we'll see what happens. I just really hope we don't end up in a proxy war. Again, not a political podcast, but I think we can all agree that the United States getting into a conflict is probably less than ideal. Unless you're a Lockheed Martin shareholder, then not financial advice, but it might not be too bad for you.
Yeah, well, I will just say that the defense industry in the United States is very heavily supported by Israeli consumption of aircraft and missiles and all sorts of things.
Interesting. I don't know. Could net be positive for the American economy? I don't know. We'll see. But it does appear that we are, at the very least, flexing the muscles a little bit with the refuelers moving over into Europe.
Yeah, and it's actually a good tie-in for my rant of the week. I usually don't have a rant, but the Paris Air Show is happening this week, and anyone who's been on my LinkedIn page the last day has noticed how annoyed I currently am with the Paris Air Show. So it's a heavy defense show. For anyone who hasn't been to the Paris Air Show, which I was just there in 2023 because, it's like a dream to go to the Paris Air Show and go eat your baguette and croissant and go see all the airplanes. Like, it's awesome, right? But apparently, someone in Paris has put some political pressure on the show organizers, and they have actually put up black walls around almost all of the Israeli defense booths, which is pretty ironic to me because there are plenty of other similar kinds of technology, including those produced by France, on display there. And it feels pretty dang discriminatory. And I can't understand how anyone is getting away with this. It's inflamed a lot of people, I think, fairly. And don't know if I'll be making it back to the Paris Air Show because I'm going to call BS on that one that you're blocking the Israeli people and nobody else at the show that produces the same kind of weapons and
Yeah,
equipment.
it's you try and see the other side, and it's like, maybe they're trying to block anybody from seeing the super secret technology. But let's be honest, the show floor stuff is so dumbed down. If you've ever been to Oshkosh and you've been around any of the like modern day fighting aircraft, like you can't get close to them for a period of time after they land because they're like covering up the stuff that you're like not supposed to see, right? So like any of this stuff on public display is not confidential information. It's not like, oh wow, you could totally go and like find super secret stuff about our defense, systems and things like that. So I don't know. That's a bummer. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
like would I call it surprising? Not sure I'd call it super surprising, but here we are. And
Yeah.
hopefully they get that resolved pretty quickly. But I'll say this, not the first time and probably not the last time that kind of European aviation clashes have happened. If you remember back to the orange paint debacle at eBay a couple
Mm.
of years ago, you've got demonstrators. Like there's just a lot of madness that goes on over there across the pond.
Yeah.
Makes me glad that I'm here in the United States and we have our freedoms. It's July 4th
Yeah.
coming up in a couple of weeks, and let's all be thankful for that.
Yeah, I think we underestimate how many freedoms we have, especially when we see, conflicts that we see arising across the world. But yeah, it's disappointing. I think the French will definitely want those systems in their backyards if something ever was happening to Europe. So maybe they should be a little kinder to Israel, who's producing some pretty amazing technology that's saving a lot of lives. I will digress and we will move into something more positive and
Oui,
fun this
oui.
week, which is our Mile High Madness segment.
And Jesse, I think you picked one that was in my neck of the woods.
Yes. So my favorite video this week was Ed the zebra, which had escaped from, I don't know which zoo it is.
Pretty
You've
sure it was
probably
the
been there
Nashville Zoo.
before. But Ed, the National Zoo, Ed escaped. They finally found Ed, but the best thing was to get Ed back home. They were picking him up in this helicopter and swinging him across, getting him back to his place. But I think that's just another example of how business aviation just does amazing things, like moving zebras from here to there when they
That's a
escape.
good point. I can totally see Bell or Sikorsky or whoever was the manufacturer of the helicopter sticking this in a brochure. And if you don't, I think that's a missed opportunity. And if you're the operator that went and picked him up, you have, for those that don't mess with utility helicopters, it's like, here's our capabilities briefing. And it's like, we can move heavy rocks for you, or we can put air conditioners on top of roofs. And if you don't put that we can go pick up your zebra when it gets lost in your op spec, I'm going to be severely disappointed.
I just hope that that pilot had kids to come home and tell that story too, because they will always think he's like the coolest dad or mom ever.
Yeah,
It's such a great
pretty
story.
legendary. So kudos to that helicopter operator, and you're welcome for having like your next 3 years of Facebook ads taken care of. Like, hey, if you need us, call us. So my Mile High segment is is a photo that was tweeted not yesterday, but it was I think last week. So Grant Cardone tweets the G800 or the Global 7500. And look at the pointing. He's pointing which one? Subliminal messaging? I don't know. That's very interesting.
Hmm.
I'll tell you this. It appears he did not want to wait for the 10x to 10x his business. And if you listen to any Grant Cardone, you'll realize why that is kind of funny. The 10x hasn't been certified yet. Hopefully it will someday, but it appears he did not want to wait for the 10x. So he is deciding between the G800 and the Global 7500. So this is my photo of the
Yeah.
day from X. of course.
Well, and not only did he post that image, but he also wrote, he or maybe a bot, an AI assisted writing about this. Oh yeah, there it is. The M dashes just give it away. I just have to tell everyone, watch your M dashes. If you're going to start writing something with AI, maybe think about curating it just a little bit
The other
before
dead
you put it
giveaways
out
for
there.
me, the word high flying, dead giveaway. I mean, dead
Yeah.
giveaway. If it ever talks about
Yeah.
luxury, it usually is a dead giveaway. But this is a really, really long tweet that was very clearly written by AI.
Mhm.
And that has good for I use AI like every day.
Sure.
But, you know, you gotta tell AI like, hey, don't sound so much like an AI before you write this. A skimpy skirmish in the skies. In the skies, dead giveaway. Chat GPT. Um,
Yeah.
if only
Yeah.
half of 1% became buyers, it's billions, and the marketing lasts for years. The rivalry between Gulfstream and Bombardier is heating up, with Cardone's potential switch adding fuel to the fire. Like, come on. It's not.
This is a negotiation, is what this is. He doesn't like the price or the terms or the delivery time of the Gulfstream product that he's been loyal to, and he feels abused. But unfortunately, I think that's the world that we're all living in, man. I mean, it's the OEMs, they control the delivery times. I mean, what it takes you at least 2 years right now to get a business jet of almost any type, and if you want a discount, like, good luck. They have no shortage of customers today.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the thing is that he probably was too late to the order book and he's just mad that he can't skip the line like he's used to. I mean, I know I've heard rumors that he skipped the line on a 550. I've heard rumors that he skipped the line a couple of different times. And probably what's happening is he can't skip the line. And, the interesting thing is he's talking about going to the G700 versus the Global. And we talked a couple weeks ago, if he's tall, there might be a reason why he might be going global over Gulfstream. I don't know how
How
tall
tall is
Grant
he?
Cardone is. That's a really good
I'm looking
question.
it up.
Our audience right now is also fumbling in their cell phones trying to Google how tall is Grant Cardone. I don't think he's that tall.
He's 5'9".
I'm 5'9". Like, that's not that tall. I would
Five
not consider
nine,
myself
and I
tall.
feel comfortable in a
Yeah,
Gulfstream.
I'm comfortable with the short
Yeah,
windows.
I mean that's average. That's average height.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his 20 million followers aren't just casual viewers. They're entrepreneurs, investors, and high net worth individuals who trust his business acumen. Like, if 2,000 people, okay, this is my favorite part, actually. His 20 million followers aren't just casual viewers. They trust his business acumen. If just 0.001% of his audience, 2,000 people, purchased a jet at 73 million Global 7500 or 81 million G700, the revenue would be staggering. There are not 2,000 buyers for either of those aircraft. I'm sorry, but there's just not.
No.
ChatGPT, if you're listening, do better.
Bad arguments. Very bad arguments. All I would say is I feel your pain. I know what you're going through, but it's not you. I promise. It's not that they don't love you. It's just not enough airplanes and plenty of buyers. So
Yeah,
sorry, man.
yeah, tough go. But first world problems. I mean, I have the same issue. My G700 is like 3 years out, so I hate having to wait.
Taking
It
forever.
sucks. Ken Ricky
I'm just
took
gonna
them
have
all.
to charter in the
Ken Ricky took
meantime.
them all. Speaking of which, this is totally unrelated
Oh my
and
god,
didn't
that's
plan, but
hilarious.
I'm gonna throw you a curveball. Have you seen the designs from FlexJet? They're like, they crowdsourced the design of their next like LXI interior. They are
I remember
gorgeous.
hearing about
Oh
that.
my
Yeah.
goodness. Like, if you don't follow Ken on Instagram, like, I'm going to totally sound like a stan because I 100% am. I think Ken Ricky's the bomb. Go follow him on
He
Instagram
loved
and
him.
he'll like post about it sometimes and he'll post the videos from it. They are gorgeous because you can tell that it wasn't like
Nice.
aircraft designers designing the inside. Like, one guy put a potted plant like behind the divan and I was like, that's and then he did like a moss wall like in kind of like the now that's like probably an FAA certification nightmare, but like the ideas, I'm like, this is so smart. Like, I love seeing like creative interiors because so many interiors look like the inside of a prison. Like, unfortunately, like, they're just so boring.
Yeah, they're boring and they're often yellow, and everyone's very much moving away from yellow, I feel like, but it needs to happen a lot faster than it's happening. I don't like it. Tan seats, gross. But
You heard it here. The VIP seat does not need to be tan.
absolutely not. If like need like blue colored glasses to get on your airplane and like make it look normal, like that's not the look you want to go for. Just clean, modern. No. But yes, FlexJet has a habit of making some really nice interiors, and I'm gonna have to go check out these designs. That sounds pretty cool.
So, speaking of big, ultra long range business jets, they can land at White Plains. I was at White Plains a couple of weeks ago. I saw a variety of aircraft, including a couple of helicopters. And if you
Hmm.
haven't been, the valet parking was a nice touch, something that you don't get at the Orlando one. So the valet parking at White Plains for the White Plains Regional NBAA, nice touch. But White Plains has made the news in a bit of a different way.
Yeah, so a lawsuit has been filed from Private Jet Services Group. They're alleging discriminatory practices on their charter flights because Delta has been able to take in sports teams and do all sorts of stuff at HPN versus Private Jet Services Group, who actually does have damages in this case because they had an agreement for almost a $5 million contract to fly sports teams in and out of that location. A lot of people are telling me like, Jessie, you're on the wrong side of this issue, you don't know what you're talking about. But like when I'm looking at it from the outsider's perspective, I go, why is this plane that's the same size and that plane that's the same size not equally allowed to go into the field? I don't know what all the background is, but it's definitely interesting, and we'll have to see what happens with this
Yeah, the
case.
world of big charters is just like it's a 1% of 1% of 1%, right? Like you got like the charter world, which is like relatively big. And then like you get into the VVIP or like not even the VVIP, like the like all first class lay flat airliner service is like it's such a niche market. I
Hmm.
just you can't help but wonder. It's like in my mind, it's almost binary. And this is one person's opinion, so don't take this as gospel, but there's either way more to this story and the headline is hey, it's 757 versus 757 and like why is this so, or like there's either way more to this story and it's like there's a lot that we don't know and it's just a lawsuit that hits headlines and Delta can't afford to come out and basically squash it, right, and be like actually like here's the difference, or maybe it is, maybe it literally is a bit of favoritism that's happening towards Delta because they've done it for longer and they're the operator and not a broker. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting one. I am very curious to see the actual outcome of this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. These airports are publicly funded. A lot of money and a lot of things that get put into airports, it's all public funds. Even if there's private companies running some of these locations, like at the same time, you still need to live by the principles of competitive fairness. And so many times I have seen, this person gets the hanger and that person doesn't because of some like back dealings or relationship. And yes, I know they're private companies, but like there are transparency issues. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case in this one, but I've seen it before and I'm curious, to see what they put in the public docket because it's going to be very
The
interesting
county
for
is
sure.
claiming that there's more to the story. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
We will. But I think it's a hazardous thing for these types of operations and those thinking about doing, the jet suite thing where you put a whole bunch of 135 passengers on these airplanes that aren't really meant for these small airports and the outcome that can come from that. So investor beware and buyer beware
HPN
too.
has commercial air service though. Breeze flies out of there. American flies out of there. Like it's you're not flying in a Teterboro, right? Which is like complete private only air service. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. You know, that's a bummer on the $5 million contract. Probably $1 million worth of margin on that. That hurts. That does not hurt. That does not help anybody.
Yeah, we shall see indeed. All right, so next story of the week, the FAA administrator confirmation is ongoing. So it's the former CEO of Republic Airways. This is a little bit contentious. I think all the aviation groups are really behind him and want him to be confirmed. But there's some consumer advocacy groups that are a little concerned because he was pushing at Republic to lower the 1,500-hour rule for pilots, which is a big, 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 big hot topic in the commercial flying space. So I don't know. Do you think he's going to go for it,
You know,
Preston?
think, here's my personal opinion, is if I had $1 for every FAA administrator hearing that I have tried to watch in the last 3 years, I'd be able to afford a private jet at this point. It's like we keep cycling through. I mean, you look at all of the different folks that have tried to sit in this seat at the FAA administrator, and this is the unfortunate side of government, is that one, everybody's going to have different opinions on who the person is, and they're going to be very strongly held. Two is that the government moves at the pace of molasses. And so it's like, to do anything, it's like it just takes forever. I think some of that's a little bit of a good
Yeah.
thing, right? You want a little bit of friction there. I have such a hard time with this because as you have the technology slope, the slope in the whole world is at one angle, it feels. And then the aviation slope tends to lag a pretty significant amount. Chamath Palihapitiya, for those who listen to the All In podcast or follow who he is at all, went on an absolute rant about aviation safety and how we have all of these near misses and like, why does it keep happening and all this kind of stuff. And does the 1,500-hour rule prevent near misses? Probably. Definitely in the left seat. But like, there's so many other issues to like, I feel like work out. And can technology help supplement those pilots that have less hours? Probably. But I think it's more of, you have to have like a sequence of events. What I don't want to see happen personally is get rid of the 1,500-hour rule before the advancements in technology are such that you can supplement the lack of experience for the person in the right seat.
Yeah. And I was on for a brief period before I retired from Grandview a couple years ago. I was on the FAA's work group. It was the pipelines, pathways, basically like pilot training, and how do we determine what makes a safe pilot? And absolutely not. It's not 1,500 hours, period. That's not what makes a pilot safe. Someone can have 40,000 hours and be completely unsafe. I've seen it with my own eyes and had to let people go in those situations. But the question is, where do you draw the line? Obviously, pilot inexperience was a huge contributing factor that Cole could crash. We know that. But yeah, how do we first of all create a modern scorecard for a pilot? And some of that could happen through flight data monitoring and all sorts of other amazing tools that we have. But those tools just don't get implemented in aviation. So we end up with these archaic rules because we haven't adapted to new technology either. Uh, yeah, it's a quagmire, and I don't necessarily agree with the 1,500 hour, but I also don't think we have anything to like default back on right now that really guarantees safety either. So where do you go
Yeah,
from
I
there?
think if you've ever read The Innovator's Dilemma, I think that we're experiencing exactly that problem where the cost to iterate on even governmental technology and the opportunity cost, right? The concept of the innovator's dilemma is the reason why, for instance, makers of the 8-track were not the same makers as the CD, because you have this like corner of the market and the R&D cost and the opportunity cost to wipe out your cash cow uh, is like so high that you're not going to invent the CD, but somebody else comes and invents the CDs and all of a sudden wipes out the whole need for 8 tracks or for, vinyl or whatever. And so I think we're experiencing a little bit of innovator's dilemma in government because the 1,500-hour rule gives a good defined box, and the opportunity cost of saying, well, if we remove that, what if we're wrong and we implement technology, right?
Mhm.
But then if we implement technology, then can we do the 1,500-hour rule, et cetera? Or, you look at the other end of the spectrum, right? So I think aviation is going through an interesting, especially commercial aviation, right? Is kind of has these bookends. You have 1,500 hours in the bottom end, and then you have the 62 retirement age. Am I right there? 62
Mhm.
retirement age
Yeah.
because they were trying to move it up. So those are your
Yeah.
bookends in commercial aviation. They've worked up until this point, we think. But maybe those are not, like, maybe they're faulty metrics. Maybe that's not exactly how we should be thinking about it. So I hope that we get an FAA administrator in, whoever it is, and somebody that understands that, like, there are some pretty significant priorities and there's a lot of deferred decisions that we're kind of going to have to come to terms with, and we got to come to terms with them like now. You look at what's happened over the last 12
Yeah.
months in aviation safety, and you look at kind of the verge of eVTOL potentially maybe coming to market. Like, you look at the whole, all of the copper systems breaking and outages at Newark. You have all of these decisions, and it's like, we've got to make them like right now. Like, you can't push off these decisions anymore. So the way that I filter through is, are they going to be thoughtful? Are they going to have the right framework? That's what I want in an FAA administrator. Who is that? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I also just want someone who actually sticks around for
That'd
a
be
long
nice.
time, because that would be refreshing. Yeah. I mean, and Brian Bedford, so he is the CEO that's up for nomination. The other kind of funny thing over this last week, which was kind of like a gotcha, but also not, apparently on a bio on a website, it said that he was a commercially rated pilot, when in fact he didn't own or didn't hold a commercial certificate. But you had some color on that, which I actually thought was kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
Politico kind of ran this piece that said, hey, look, we pulled his pilot record and he does not have his commercial ticket. He is IFR rated. He does have his multi-engine rating to his private pilot certificate. So he is, the next logical step there is commercial rating. According to the DOT, he did pass the written and the oral portion of his commercial rating. He means he didn't fly some chandelles and turns around a point and whatever else that you have for the commercial maneuvers to get his full ticket. So is he actually a commercial pilot? Technically, no. Does he meet most of the qualifications? Yes. Does the CEO of the airline need to be like ATP rated? No. Or commercially rated? No. I don't think so. I don't think those are
No.
prerequisites to running an airline. And I think the other thing is it's like, but the flip side of that is, every time my head pops up on a website with a bio, like, I definitely read it. Like, I want to go make sure that nothing crazy was said. And like, I think it was like on the website for a long time, like that he was a commercially rated pilot. So like, you wonder, like,
Yeah.
yeah, did you ever like Google yourself? Like, like what pops up about me?
Yeah, like maybe like you got to have like a team or something that's paying attention to that sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I
we'll
don't know.
see.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, modernizing air traffic control, addressing a whole bunch of other issues at the moment are more important. And that also brings up just one little point that always makes me crazy. A lot of people like to pull this like pilot card when addressing aviation safety, and saying that pilots are the only people who can contribute to safety and organizational excellence. I take real issue with that, because I think it takes a lot more people in the chain to create a safe environment. And it's not just about being a commercially rated pilot to do it. So another rant for today. Okay, I'm done. I'm done ranting. I promise.
You have ranted the rant. So maybe we should avoid any more ranting topics, and we're
We have
totally
one
going to
more
hit
topic.
that is a ranting topic. You want to talk about ranting? Mental health for pilots is a ranter.
Oh God. Well, okay. Last topic of the day. Promise we won't rant about this one, but it's good for everyone to kind of know what's going on. So, mental health care for pilots has obviously been a big issue, big ranting topic over the last few years. But fortunately, there is movement happening. The House has just put together a bill saying that they need to spend $40 million over the next 3 years to destigmatize mental health in pilots and get them resources and help. And they're actually taking the advice of a rulemaking committee on this. So I won't get deep into it, but it's good news for people that are concerned about mental health care for pilots and
Yeah,
controllers.
there is a couple of big champions in the business aviation space for this. They are too many to name, and I'm going to totally miss half of those that have been big advocates for this in business aviation. So I'm not going to try and name a few of them. But I think it's been something that has been top of mind and has had a lot of support behind it, and I'm glad to see some actual progress here. I hope that it's actual progress and not a lot of studies that kind of turn out to be nothing. But I'll say this to
Mhm.
lighten the mood just a little bit. Unfortunately, it's going to mean the end of the hilarious memes about being sad and the FAA like coming to get you. It's like, one of my favorite ones was like,
God.
there's like the puppet. People's like, "Are you feeling sad?" Yeah, and then it's like FAA like busted. So like it's it's you look at humor and it's definitely poking fun at a serious issue. Hopefully those memes don't
Yeah.
stop though, because they are very funny. When when you're talking about making fun of the FAA and their archaic approach thus far to mental health. Look, we want pilots and air traffic controllers to have positive mental health experiences. And I think it's also about taking a holistic, like, not just like, hey, how do we address those that are sad, but like, how do we make sure that like you don't get to the point where it's like you're to the extreme, right? It's like, hey, you can take steps
Right.
to make sure that you're in a good headspace to continue on with your job. And this is, like side rant, this is like transportation in general. It is not exclusive airlines and to pilots. It's anybody who drives something big, trains, boats. Like it is kind of across the board. The like stigma on mental health, and it's like suck it up and get over it. I think the faster we can do away with that, the better off we are going to be as a society. There's my rant. It's not really a rant.
Yeah.
It's kind of a
It,
rant. So sorry, people. We promised no more rants, and that was a little bit of a
we're just emotional today. I don't know what else to tell you. It's all exciting. There's so much news, so many things happening.
exactly. I don't know. Did you, when you were at Grandview? I mean, was it something? I mean, obviously, you have to like dance. Even employers have to dance the line, right? Like, hey, don't tell us that you're sad because like we have to report you to the FAA, right?
Yeah, I will tell you, and this is not, I mean, it's alcohol abuse related, but there were times where I knew the consequences of what could happen to someone if, certain things are reported. I mean, it's very difficult. You have to walk this line between how do I make sure me as a human is taking care of this human versus making sure it gets reported and then it goes through this terrible system that isn't actually effective. Yeah, it's sticky and it needs to be fixed. And I'm glad someone's looking at it. I hope it doesn't take another decade to
Yep.
fix it.
Agreed. Maybe the government will spend money efficiently. We'll see.
All right. Well, with all of our rants today, thanks for your patience. Maybe you're ranting with us. I don't know. Maybe you enjoyed it. Maybe you want more rants. You should give us some feedback and let us know what you liked and what topics you want us to cover in the future. And we hope that you have a good commute this morning.
Yep. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter so that you can get this in email form in case you missed the podcast. And be sure to leave us a 5-star rating. It helps us with the algorithm. We want to get found. And go follow us on LinkedIn if you are in the mood for some good clips, and go connect with us there. We'd love to hear from you, and it's always a pleasure. I know I get a lot of DMs about this show, and I'm sure you do too, Jessie, but it really is a pleasure to get to bring the news to business aviation.
I love it. All right. We'll see you next time on the VIP seat.